You're listening to Birthing Hope, a podcast designed to inspire women to create hope-filled lives in mind, body, and spirit. Living a hope-filled life means allowing light to be birthed in dark places. And although the world is full of darkness, you are pregnant with light. Join me every other Wednesday as I have real conversations with inspiring women designed to encourage you to push through the darkness and birth hope in your life and in the lives of those around you. My name is LeDuff Gadson. I am a Christ follower, author, artist, wife, and mom of 8. I will be your host and midwife as we take on the task of shining our lights and birthing hope into a dimly lit world. We've got hope to birth. Time to push. Hello, Hope Birthers, and welcome to episode 5 of the Birthing Hope podcast. Life can pack a powerful and painful punch, and my guest today is no stranger to the blows and the deep hurt that accompanies them. LeRoyesha Tyler-Foster is a resilient woman who has built an impressive career as a master hairstylist, cosmetology instructor, and mentor, and owner of Salon Lavish, located in North Charleston, South Carolina. And she has done so all while overcoming grief, pain, poverty, and depression. As a mother of 4, LeRoyesha experienced the greatest blow of all, the loss of her son to suicide. LeRoyesha, known as the Fearless Fighter, now uses her experiences with hurt, heartbreak, and pain as a powerful speaking platform to advocate for suicide prevention and awareness, as well as equip women to fight to win in the midst of hurt and debilitating pain. Please join us as we discuss fighting for hope in the midst of hurt. Good morning, LeRoyesha.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely. I am super excited.
Yes. So we are going to be talking obviously about hurt today and the elaborate web it can weave. And I want to tell our listeners and the viewers how we decided upon that or this topic. You posted, and first of all, I just want to say thank you so very much for your transparency and your vulnerability and sharing with people. I truly believe that that is how we make real connections with others. That's how we truly affect change in other people's lives, by telling stories that people can relate to and sharing what we've been through. And you do it so beautifully. You share everything, all the raw details, but there's always so much hope and life and light that comes from you in your sharing. And it was not long ago that you shared a social media post of video clips of you and your son before he passed away. And in that sharing, in that post, there was a sentence. It said, "I am happy, hurting, and healing at the same time." And you went on to say, you don't know how you're doing it, you're just doing it. And I think that today's conversation is going to really share with people how to do that, how you're doing it, and how they can do it too. So I would love it if we would maybe just begin first by sharing your personal testimony of hurt and loss, and just let's springboard from there.
Okay, here we go. Well, I'm LeRoyesha Foster. I'm from North Charleston, and like you said previously, I had 4 children. My son, Michael Anthony, was my oldest, and I have 3 daughters, Tatiana, Zari, and Sky, who I love very dearly and very proud of. But hurt and grief is no surprise to me. I've dealt with it a lot in my life. In 2007, my husband was murdered, my children's father. So that was an episode where I had to learn how to deal with grief, and then becoming a single mother, deal with poverty, and try to provide for my children. And then, trying to go through that, in 2015, I had two brothers. My younger brother died suddenly in his sleep, so that was another hit that I had to deal with. Once again, dealing with grief, trying to get myself together and trying to get back in the swing of life, helping my children deal with now losing their uncle, and then my parents losing their son, who was like the middle child, who was like the glue to the family. So that was hard for me, but we kept pressing on and we kept fighting. And at that time, that's when I started counseling, because in my family, it was just, well, it happened, we trust God and move on.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I needed a little bit more than that. I needed counseling and to express how I felt in my emotions.
Right.
So, so trying to get over that, I did that, and 2018 comes. My son, Michael Anthony, was 21 at the time, and he was dealing with a lot of depression. What had happened with him was he witnessed something in 2017 that he told me changed his life. Um, and he said from that experience, it changed everything in his thought process. And not only that it changed his thought process, he had to be honest to say what he witnessed.
Mm-hmm.
And by him doing that, it got out on the streets, and people started labeling him as the snitch or the bad guy, as the person who, said things.
Mm-hmm.
So he became a product of bullying. And for that, the week leading up to, he just was going through a really hard time. And we were trying everything that we knew possible to try to bring him out of the bad place he was in. So March 7th, which was the day before, my brother dropped him off at my parents' house, which was normal because they fed him and he would go over there. So I called him after I got off from work. He didn't answer, so he had a little girlfriend. So I figured he was just there spending some time with her. And then the next morning, I began to become worried because it wasn't like him not to respond to a text message.
Mm-hmm.
So after that, he didn't respond to me. And I said to him, if you don't respond, I'm going to call the police because now I'm worried. So then my oldest daughter decided to call AT&T to try to figure out if, we can get some passwords or try to track the phone. So lo and behold, after about an hour or so of trying to figure things out and trying to make phone calls, my middle daughter remembered his Apple ID, so we were able to track his phone.
Mm-hmm.
And I tracked his phone, and I left the salon, and I found my child in the back of the park. He had shot himself in the chest. And at that moment, I did not know life to be normal. I mean, I had dealt with grief, but this was a different type of grief.
Mm-hmm.
This was a gut wrenching, knock you off your feet, on your face, like life was completely different for me.
Mm-hmm.
So, in the midst of trying to gather myself, because I have now three daughters that I have to try to be strong for, but still allow them to see me go through, because I think that's important for them to know that you have feelings,
Yes.
you have emotions, and you have to let them go. And you can't always be the strong person to say, okay, I'm gonna hold this all
Mm-hmm.
and not deal with it. So for me, um, in the very beginning, I was internalizing it different than I should have, and it caused me health issues.
Mm-hmm.
So at that time, I realized that I had to do something different, because my doctor was saying, if you don't do something different, you're going to become sick. So I went to God, because that is who has kept me throughout the whole situation, was God. Um, and I remember telling him, like, I can't do this alone. I just simply cannot do this alone. This is hard. I don't understand why. I mean, I went through all the grief questions that you asked, like, why my child, why this happened to me. I've been praying for him, because Michael was my child that kept me on my knees.
Mm.
So it was like I was praying for this child more than I was praying for myself.
Yeah.
So it's like, why this child? Because I had hope that he was going to turn himself around because he didn't make all the best decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, in talking to my spiritual mother, it started to make a little bit of sense. And then somebody said something to me, and it kind of turned my whole world around when she said, I understand where you're coming from. I don't know your pain, but I can tell you that Michael is living better than we are down on earth because God has him.
Mm-hmm.
And that gave me a sense of peace to
Mm-hmm.
know that my child is with the king and he's being taken care of.
Yes.
Now, on the other hand, with me trying to deal with grief, the only thing that I can say that helped me was staying on my knees continuously, praying and asking God, doing a lot of meditation, journaling a lot, and writing out my emotions, and going through every emotion that I felt because I felt like I was all over the place. At one moment, I was angry. At one moment, I was happy. At one moment, I was okay with it. And then at another moment, I was like, this can't be real. And then I was in shock and I was like, okay, he's coming back. I was going through so many different emotions. So I started journaling them down to
Right.
kind of put them on paper to release them.
Yes.
And that's what kind of helped me get through along with my church family and my girlfriends, my support system.
Yes. And
Yeah.
I do believe whether a person likes to write or not,
Hmm.
writing is healing, getting it out, because when it's inside of you and your thoughts and your emotions are just swirling in your mind, in your heart, just around you, it can consume you if you do not release it. And I think that when you release it on paper, it's a good way of being able to go back and see, where was I on this day? What did the Lord speak to me on this day? What did I say on that day? To just really just give yourself the freedom and the space to almost just vomit whatever it is that is inside of you, with no guard, no barrier, no, oh, I should or shouldn't say this, because you will have some people that, as you're trying to be honest about what you're feeling, they will try to correct you because it doesn't line up with what the good Christian girl should be saying. Well,
Hmm.
you're a Christian and so you don't want to say that. No, God wants to hear everything. He wants you to come to Him with all of it. He wants you to be honest. This is
Hmm.
how I'm feeling. I'm not saying this is where I'm going to stay. But right now, this is what I'm feeling and this is what I'm experiencing, and I don't know what to do with it. And a lot of people really get uncomfortable with it when you're sharing your thoughts with them because they themselves don't know what to do with it. And so
Hmm.
they just want you to be okay and they want to make you better, but they need to support you as you get better, not
Hmm.
fix you, but support you while God is repairing you and while you're doing the work to repair yourself.
Hmm.
Um, Go
And
ahead.
spending time alone journaling and being with God, I felt like I was in a no judgment zone. And for
Yes.
me, that helped because it was I was able to be myself, as vulnerable as I needed to be,
Mm-hmm.
um, broken, because God knew. And I just could be myself, writing out what I felt at that given time when I chose to
Yes.
write.
Right.
And I think
Yes.
that is very critical of writing your feelings down and
Yes.
being and not being judged because
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just, when I, back in March, you probably already know, when I had my miscarriage, I felt abandoned. I felt like God had abandoned me. And I was talking with someone and I was like, I feel abandoned. And she was like, but not by God. And I said, no, Yes, that is exactly what I feel. And I knew in that moment, I'm like, okay, I cannot share everything that I feel, even with people who you think you can. I'm like, I need to go to him and just talk to him about how I'm feeling. Even Jesus said, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? If Jesus can say it and feel it and be honest, then certainly God would expect us to feel that sometimes. And he wants us to say it to him so that he can reassure us and let us know, I have not forsaken you. I've not left you. I will never leave you. And I am right here with you. So, well, all of that. And like I said, I just think that your sharing of it and the way that you share it, as painful as it is, it's just beautiful in the way that you express it. I've admired that from you as you have shared different things about the loss of your son. And from that, losing your husband, your uncle, your child, going through poverty, going through these different hurts and pains, from that, your speaking platform and your calling has been birthed forth. Fight to win.
Yes.
Yes.
Hmm.
Can you tell us more about maybe the moment that you felt like this is what I have to do and this is what God is calling me to?
Absolutely. So in 2018, the end of 2018, I was going through a lot of God and I having our encounters, and me going to him and expressing how I was feeling. And then in 2019, I suffered a heartbreak. So that, on top of me dealing with grief, it put me in a place of, literally, I felt like I was dying. And then something in me was like, you have to continue to fight, not only for your children, but just for yourself. You have to continue to fight. The battle is not yours, but you just gonna have to get up every day, no matter how hard it is, and continue to fight. So I was having a conversation with someone, and the words "fight to win" just came up.
Mm.
And I was like, okay, God, so what am I going to do with this? And then I was having another conversation with somebody else, another friend of mine, and he was like, friend, there's so many suicides that are going on, and so many people that are not sharing, and so many people that, they sweep it underneath the rug. This is a time for you to bring it to the forefront and say something and let people know that this is a real life issue.
Mm-hmm.
And if I could do anything to prevent, that's what I want to do. So I prayed on it. I started writing some things down, of how I wanted it to look, and what direction I wanted it to go in. And then after the heartbreak, God told me, I'm going to turn your pain into purpose.
Mm-hmm.
All that you have endured was not to go in vain. It is going to be for purpose. And at that time, the pain was so surreal. I couldn't fathom where I'm at today, because the heartbreak, it took me back, because I was already grieving. So the heartbreak took me back to where I was with the grieving. So I was in a really, really, really bad place. But then that little voice in me, that thing in me just rose up and said, you will win, you will not die. You have a purpose on this earth, and I'm going to turn your pain into purpose. And that's how it's birthed. So Fight to Win is a platform that I'm going to use to help as many women as I possibly can to fight to win, not only with suicide, but just fighting to win for yourself. Mental illness is real.
Yes.
Depression is real. I suffered from depression and anxiety and insomnia after my son passed. Um, so those things are real, and those things sometimes are not talked about. And also during the heartbreak, I went through a period where I didn't feel worthy. I
Mm-hmm.
felt like, me being a woman, I was just not worthy, and I had to do a lot of self-reflection and a lot of getting to know LaRosha and rediscovering LaRosha to figure out who LaRosha really is, because I had lost myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I just took the opportunity to turn my pain into purpose and reached out, and I, got a coach in Lavondelin, and
Mm-hmm.
which she has been awesome. And now I am the Fearless Fighter influencer, and I'm
Yes.
going to be helping a lot of women become fearless fighters, because God has equipped us with what we need.
Mm-hmm.
He really has. And all we have to do is tap in. We have to tap in to what He has already placed for to win, because
Yes.
we all are winners.
Yes. And I feel like, and I don't feel like, I know this to be true. Women have a lot on their plates, on their shoulders, on our hearts, on our minds. We don't just shut one area of our life off as we go to do something else. As we are cooking, we're thinking about, what do I need to do on my with my job, with my children, for my mother or my father, because we become older and we're caretakers for our parents who are becoming elderly, or any other loved one that's older, and we're seeing about, and we're nurturing, and we're caring for, and we're working, and we're fighting, and we're praying, and we're doing all of these things, and it can become overwhelming. So many women suffer from anxiety, from depression, sleepless nights. It was just last week, I think it was, a very close friend of mine texted me. It had to have been almost 2 o'clock in the morning. She was up, awake, worried, stressed out over her job. Her
Mhm,
job is keeping her up at night. All of
mhm,
these things that are going on in our lives, loss, grief, heartbreak, pain, going through different circumstances, and still needing to get up each day and show up for our spouses or our children, for our career, for friends, coworkers, family members. We have to remember, and ourselves, we get pushed to the back burner,
mhm,
forgetting, wait a minute, I need to show up for myself
mhm,
first. Because if I don't show up for myself first, if I don't fight to win for me, how can I fight to win for anyone else?
mhm, mhm.
This is
And
so
that was a
needed.
thing. And
Mm-hmm.
that was a thing for me, because I remember my daughter is having a pretty much an intervention with me, saying, "Listen, mom, you're not the same. And we know you to be different from where you're at right now." So that was a moment for me where I had to say, you know what, you're losing yourself, LaRasha. You have to dig within to fight for yourself, because even your daughters are seeing it. And if I'm not there to be a good example or a good mother, then it trickles down, and then things
Yes.
start happening with them, and it's like a revolving cycle, and that's not
Yes.
what I wanted. So I wanted to catch it while I could and do something while I could.
Yes. Oh my goodness. So so we talked about this. I mentioned earlier this web that hurt seems to weave, and it's like this spider web, right? And you know that when an insect gets caught in the spider's web, it gets more ensnared and more entangled as it struggles to release itself. And what I feel like a lot of us women is what we're doing is we're struggling through life instead of having strategy. And some of the things that you talk about is like your grief plan and different healing tools. Can you share with us some of those things that can prevent us from just struggling and give us a strategy to fight to win?
Yes. So I created the Fearless Fighter battle plan.
Oh,
And what I recognized in that, which helped me, was when I was going through my darkest moments, it was the word of God that helped me through.
mm-hmm.
So what I did is I wrote out scriptures, and I meditated on them day in and day out. Whenever I felt like I needed just to be uplifted, I read the word. I also took affirmations
Mm-hmm.
and I placed them around my room and on the bathroom where I would see them to remind myself, you're strong. You're going to get through this. God is with you. Some of my favorite scriptures, I wrote them around my bedroom and on my bathroom wall just to keep reminding myself daily that, you are enough. You're worthy. You're going to get through this. This is only a trial that God is going to get you through. You're going to be a winner. Everything is going to work itself out. So I wrote out some of my favorite scriptures and affirmations that helped me kind of go through. And like
Mm-hmm.
I said earlier, also journaling and
Yes.
just spending that one-on-one time with God really was what helped me,
Mm-hmm.
because it was a time for us to spend together, for him to show me different things about what
Mm-hmm.
was happening and why they happened and what's going to happen.
Right, right. And I think that it's so, just like you said earlier, you said your family would tell you, okay, go to God, that's all you need to do, but you knew I need some counseling too.
Hmm.
So for those people who may be listening out there who are only getting counseling, then I think it's important for them to take away from this, you need the word of God too. We
Yes.
need those things together. We need
Yeah.
counseling from professionals, but we also need that counseling and that one-on-one time from God himself, his word, the Bible, and of course, trusted people who are going to encourage us in the word, who are going to be there to support us, not try to fix us, but be that, that person who's like, okay, let me keep her on track. Let me keep her, have you
Yes.
have you gone to the word today?
Yes.
When's your next
Uh,
appointment?
an accountability partner.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, absolutely.
Yes. Yes. So part of the grieving tools that I use, that I did find a good therapist that worked well for
Mm-hmm.
me. I journaled a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I read the word, and I allowed myself to sit in my emotions and to
Yes,
deal with them,
yes,
because that is important. You can't just keep going day by day and just acting like nothing's happening.
absolutely.
Sometimes you have to stop and sit in where you're feeling at that
Mm-hmm.
present moment, because if you keep just running from it, sooner or later it's going to catch up to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So me sitting and just feeling each emotion, that helped me tremendously,
Yes.
alongside with the
Mm-hmm.
other things of reading the word and journaling and all that stuff. Me sitting in and dealing with my emotions head on was another thing that helped me.
Yes. And it takes courage to do that.
Hmm.
And because it doesn't feel good, it is scary, but you can't exercise courage or be courageous unless there is some sort of fear to face,
Right.
unless there's some sort of uncomfortable situation that you have to face. And I think that when people, like you said, you position yourself and you be still in that, and you understand this doesn't feel good, but it's necessary.
Hmm.
It's not going to last always. I have to sit here in this and feel it and work through it little by little until eventually you make your way out of it. Um, so, back to that statement that you'd made about I'm happy, hurting, and healing at the same time. What's interesting is after that, I saw a post from a family member of mine that said, does it make sense that I am depressed and happy at the same time? And I was like, wow, we just,
Hmm.
you just posted about that, about being happy, feeling happy, yet hurting at the same time. And here, this family member saying, I'm happy, but I'm also depressed. I think, I feel as though that happiness is, perhaps it's not happiness, maybe it's joy, because there's a difference
Hmm.
between happiness and joy. If you're feeling that joy, no matter what you're going through, that peace of God that can bring you joy, even when you're going through darkness is probably a more accurate description of what that feeling is, of that happiness. Although I imagine you can feel bouts of happiness or moments of happiness while at the same time feeling depressed, where it's in and out, coming in and out.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to get your take on that, because it seems like it could bring confusion or maybe even bring some guilt. Like, how can I be happy right now when I shouldn't be? How
Mm-hmm.
can I be happy right now? My son is gone. You
Mm-hmm.
know, can you tell me what your thoughts are on that?
Sure. During COVID alone is enough to be happy because the world is just in a whirlwind right now with COVID and the pandemic of what's going on. But me saying I'm happy, hurting, and healing is that it's a day by day process. It doesn't happen overnight.
Mm-hmm.
It's a process that I'm walking through. But there's moments where sometimes they're good and sometimes they're bad.
Mm-hmm.
But my prayer has been for the good to outweigh the bad.
Mm-hmm.
So for me to wake up every morning, God give me another chance, and I get to live my life. I get to do what I love doing, which is being a stylist. I get to still be a mother to my children. I'm still living life and thriving. I'm happy about that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy because I have the option to make choices to not let my circumstance and what I've gone through dictate the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And while I'm healing, I'm doing the necessary work to heal. And although it doesn't feel good at times, there are still happy moments. There are still moments where I'm rejoicing because I have that opportunity to heal and still feel some kind of happiness or some sense of joy
Mm-hmm.
behind it.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, you can be happy and healing and hurting at the same time because the hurt comes and goes, but it's a choice to be happy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I choose to press forward and to fight to not lose LaRasha and to be as happy as I know how to be. Now, my happiness may not look like the next person's happiness,
Right.
but
Right.
as long as I feel contentment in my heart and know that God is keeping me for a reason. And his word tells us that, cast all our cares on him and, he's going to take care of it. And, he'll never leave us nor forsake us. He's always there. So if his word tells us that, I have to believe it. I've come to a place where I have to believe it and I choose to be happy
Mm-hmm.
while I'm going through.
Mm-hmm. Did that ever bring any confusion for you, or in the
Um,
beginning when you first started feeling that?
It did because it's like, okay, I still don't have my child. You know what I'm saying? I
Mm-hmm.
still don't have my brother. I still have to walk the walk of grief.
Mm-hmm.
But why walk the walk of grief with all the weight of weight on your shoulders and not want to be fulfilled with some kind of joy
Mm-hmm.
or some kind of happiness or some kind of, because in the back of your mind, for me, it's like it's going to be okay. This is temporary. The hurt is not going to last always. And while you're trying to heal and get through the hurt, you still have to live life. You still have to enjoy what God has put you on this earth to do. He
Mm-hmm.
does, although things happen to us, it's not, he didn't put us on here to be sad and miserable and crying and always going through. You're going to have your moments, but it's a choice of whether you want to be happy. It's a choice of whether you want to sit and wallow in it or get up and fight to move forward.
Yes. So that sounds, it plays into kind of the next thing that I was going to talk about, with how there's hope in the midst of hurt and loss.
Hmm.
For, for me, what I hear you saying is you have to choose hope.
Mm-hmm.
You have to keep holding on to hope in order to get you through from one day to the next.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that? Anything in particular?
Um, it takes me back to Jeremiah 29:11 when
Mm-hmm.
God says, He's going to give us hope in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all I can do at this point is stand on the word and
Mm-hmm.
stand on what God promises are.
Mm-hmm.
And although I am hurting and healing at the same time, I still have hope to know that this is not going to be the end for me. There is going to be greater that's going to come beyond what I'm feeling at this present moment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like I said, it is for purpose, and the joy in the being overly happy about it is going to come when I see other women who have suffered maybe a portion of what I've suffered, or something that I can make some kind of impact on their life.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that at the end of the day will satisfy something within me. But as far as hope is concerned, I just have to keep that God gives us hope, and that's what I'm going to stick with.
And that um, really speaks to one of your platforms, or one of your speaking points within your platform, is the resilient you, when you are teaching and talking to women about finding that fighter within themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us more about that, how you guide these women to finding that fight within themselves.
Finding the fight within yourself is not easy. You have to look at yourself. You have to look at yourself dead on in the mirror and say, it's not always going to be like this.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, me saying that there's something that's good that's going to come out of what you're going through. It
Mm-hmm.
may not look like it now, but God is preparing you for something. He's giving you strength. He's giving you the tools. He's giving you he's giving you what you need to be resilient.
Mm-hmm.
You have to hold on to that and say to yourself, I'm not going to let this overtake me, because this is temporary. I have to trust the process because I know better is coming. I know this is working out for my good. Although it doesn't feel good right now, I have to trust and believe that it's going to get better. This is not always how it's going to look.
Mm-hmm.
And me teaching them how to be resilient is because that's all I have known to be.
Mm-hmm.
That's I've had to pick up myself through every trial that I've went through, and just continue to be the strong, independent, resilient woman that I know how to be.
Yes.
So by me sharing and saying, if God can do it for me, God will do it for you, but giving you the necessary tools of maybe like what scriptures to read, or having us come together and we all piggyback off of different situations or different struggles and trials that we went through. Um, those things are all things that are in the works as to what's to come. But because of COVID, we are very limited on what we
Mm-hmm.
can do. But that's why I created the Fearless Battle Plan that's going to be on the website very soon, as to what gave me the strength to be resilient.
Mm-hmm. And I think it all really truly boils down to that when you allow God to use your hurt, He will bring forth hope. When you give it to Him, your pain to you, He will give you a purpose. He will show you and illuminate and highlight, because it's stretching you. It's stretching you for something that's bigger than you, something outside of yourself, outside of ourselves, our stories, and the things that we go through, the things that we survive, the things that we triumph over. It's not for us.
Mhm.
It is for other people. And I
It's
think
funny you
that's
say that. It's funny you say that because last night I was at a grief session for mothers,
Mhm.
and that was one of the last statements because it was about 15 of us, different situations where mothers had lost their children,
Mhm.
and the host for the night, she said, you know, the pain that you're going through, you may not understand it now, but it's for somebody else
Mhm.
because you'll be able to share with somebody else or um, show somebody else or be a living testament of how you were able to overcome.
Mhm.
And what you're going through is simply not for you all
Right.
the way. You know, it's for you to share with somebody else, to give
Yes.
somebody else hope, to give somebody else a feeling of I can get through this because she did.
Absolutely. And I mean, I feel as though, I mean, God has definitely primed you for this because there are people who would have buckled long ago, under just a fraction of the pressure and pain that you have had to endure. And so for you to be able to be that testimony, that living, walking, breathing example of you can make it through this. There is hope in the midst of this hurt. You can fight to win. You can be victorious. It is absolutely beautiful. And I just don't see anything but God using your story and your life and your example to absolutely pull up and bring up and empower other women to be able to do the same thing in their situations. So I just say thank you so very much for sharing with us today. And I want our listeners to know where they can find you, what's coming up, what they can expect from you and your platform, Fight to Win. Give it to us.
Okay. So, fearless fighters, get ready because Fight to Win is coming. The website is fighttowinSC.com and it is in progress right now of coming up. I will have a fearless fighter battle plan on the website to help encourage you with some of my favorite scriptures that have kept me while I was going through. Um, I am now taking speaking engagements via Zoom, you know, per what we're going through with this coronavirus. Um, so I'm just excited to be the fearless fighter influencer that God has placed in me to be. And I'm just excited about what's next for the women of God and the kingdom itself.
Yes.
And if I can be a living vessel to help anybody fight to win, that's what I, that's what I, that's my heart's desire.
Amen. Awesome. LaRasha, thank you so very much. I
You're most
appreciate you.
welcome. I appreciate you. This has been awesome.
This has been great. I can't wait to have you back so we can talk about more once everything gets going. So,
Absolutely.
all
Absolutely.
right. Thank you, sis.
Thank you. You take care and you be blessed.
I will. You do the same. Thank you for watching this week's episode of the Birthing Hope podcast. If you know an inspirational woman whose life and experiences carry a message of hope, then email me at creator@birthinghope.com. I'd love to invite her to the conversation. Or perhaps you are that woman. Also, visit the website at birthinghope.com. There, you'll find links to subscribe and download so you'll never miss an episode. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram at Birthing Hope Official. And remember, subscribe to this channel. Until next time, remember, create your best hope-filled life.